So look at these cars. These cars are about to race right now. I am at the NASCAR Homestead Speedway Miami racetrack interviewing Denny Hamlin, pro NASCAR driver who has over 40 Cup Series wins, 3 appearances at the Daytona 500, and a life full of adrenaline rushing moments. We're at NASCAR. We're gonna give you a little tour and we'll get the interview started. What's up, guys? Welcome to the On Track with Annie podcast. We're here with the legend himself, Denny Hamlin. How are you today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So how's it going? Have you been to the Miami Speedway before?
Yeah.
A couple of times.
Yes. This is my 20th full season in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I've been around the block once or twice. Yes.
Yeah. Are you nervous going into this?
Not anymore. Nerves really isn't a factor. Not certainly like it was when I was a rookie or anything like that. But, I'm more nervous about the result, than anything, not necessarily the process. I know what it takes to be good in the sport, but it's, I'm nervous about all the things that I can't control.
Right.
Does the pit crew, do their job and keep me, they're our offensive line if I was a football player and I was a quarterback. So they're the ones that do all the blocking and tackling that keep me in up towards the front. Does someone else make a mistake and cause a wreck that I end up getting into? So there's just a lot of factors in our sport that's different than others.
Yeah, you're relying on other people. I mean, it's tough.
Yes.
You can only do so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a team sport as much as anything. I mean, there's also a component of the equipment that you've got. It's very different where, everyone's using the same baseball or football or whatever. We're driving cars that are different from our competition depending on where our team, builds it and how they want to have it for each and every weekend. So it makes it a lot different. And certainly the driver plays a big role in steering that team in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So I want to start a little bit back. Tell me a little bit about your life growing up, how you got into this sport.
Yeah, I started when I was 5 years old. I went to a NASCAR race in Richmond, Virginia, which is my home track where I was raised. And my mom always had season tickets there. So I basically just went to a race when I was 5, and I mean, you take a kid around, cars I smelled the tires and the fuel, and I heard the roaring engines going by, and I was just like, oh, I want to be a NASCAR driver. So that's pretty much where it all started for me. And at that point, my parents brought me a go-kart when I was 7 years old, took me to a short track and in our local county, and says, okay, this is how you stop, this is how you stop, this is how you go, this is how you turn, just go out there and let's just see if you can drive this, and so I did, and I was successful. I won my very first race I was in, and you give a kid a trophy when he's 7, 8 years old, the passion grows.
Yeah, what did your parents say, as this continued? What were their views on it?
Yeah, my dad was the one who probably was the biggest race fan at the moment. He raced in some local tracks when I was just an infant, but he wasn't really that great at it, but my mom just, kind of supported him. The turning point for my mom really happened when she was, there was a powder puff night at the go-kart track, and she was able to get in my racing go-kart and actually race with all the other moms. And at that moment, she was instantly hooked on it and started coming to every race ever since.
So they're kind of adrenaline junkies too then.
Yes, absolutely. My dad, he loves old cars, fixing them up, things like that. Still loves the passion of, building a car from scratch. And my mom is, the biggest race fan you'll ever find.
That's insane. So did they start coming to all of your races and they're like, you need to continue this, you need to keep doing more? They, took you to where you needed to be and just kind of, helps out in that sense?
It's a great question because it's so different in our sport. It takes not only talent, but it takes funding. And that is the biggest hurdle that most young kids will find when they get into motorsports, is that it costs money. It costs a lot of money. It's not like you can just buy a set of pads and cleats and you're good for the season. You have to buy a car and the tires and the fuel and the engine. When it blows or you crash, you got to keep fixing it. So it takes a lot of funding. And the challenges we had when I was growing up was, my parents had very normal jobs. My dad worked at Great Dane Tractor Trailers. My mom worked at AAA Travel, and that they could only take me so far in the racing world. And so it was more me pushing them to keep me going we risked a lot as a family. My parents' second and third mortgage their house. Like if it didn't go, if I didn't get the right breaks at the right time, it would have been really bad for our family. And they risked everything to keep me going. But it's just they believed in my talent, and they believed that I was able to do this. And luckily, I got that right break at the right time.
It seems like a lot of pressure though. Like, did you feel nervous?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, I sat in my room many, many nights and listened to my parents like yelling and screaming. And it really was my mom.
Like, you have to do this for the family.
Yes, my mom was saying, we got to keep going. We got to keep. And my dad was like, there's no more money. I have no more money.
God.
Right.
Freaking
And
out.
so I hear those conversations, and then, we finally get to a place. This is probably around 2002 or so, where I was done racing. We all agreed as a family, like, we're just going to race one more race and this is it. I'm just going to work at, the trailer shop from there on. And I was fine with that. But luckily somebody just overheard that conversation that I was having, approached me and says, why don't you drive my car and tell your parents to sell everything? And I just had instant success. Yeah.
And so then how does it work with you get sponsors immediately then too, right after? Okay.
Well, I got my break really came from this guy named Jim Dean who, did this for me. And so essentially he had two cars that I raced against. And he heard me saying that this is it for me. Like, I'm not going to be able to go any further because of funding. And he said, listen, if you're not on the racetrack and my cars win, I didn't feel like I beat the best. So I want to make sure I pay for you to keep going. And so that was the big break. I called him up on Tuesday because he said, call me Tuesday, figure out how much you need to go to the next week. And at that moment, he's like, hey, me and one of my drivers just had a falling out. Just hop in my car this weekend. And we dominated the race. It was, wildly successful. And at that point, he says, you know what, tell your parents, sell all your stuff, try to get some money back. You drive for me next year. Wow. The next year, I won 25 out of 35 races. And at that point, that caught the eye of Joe Gibbs Racing, who I race for today.
It's crazy the timing of things.
You could not have scripted it. I mean, it's just the lucky breaks that I had here and there to keep this thing going was incredible.
And I feel like when you're on someone else's watch, it almost makes you push harder.
Yes.
You're like, oh, now I really have to try.
You have such a huge responsibility, right? Like, if I didn't succeed in my parents' car, yes, they were risking a lot to, keep me going, but, there was no one really else to answer to, right? Where when you drive for someone else, it's like, they're the team owner. They're the ones looking down at you saying, hey, why aren't you winning, right? And so certainly adds a ton more pressure.
Yeah, well, then you got momentum after winning 25.
Yes, that was a big deal for sure. And then at the end of that season, Joe Gibbs Racing called and said, hey, we want to sign you to a development contract. So it was, and they were, they have a NASCAR team, right? So I still wasn't in the NASCAR ranks until, just a few years later. But I literally went from working at my dad's trail shop to 18 months later racing in the Cup Series, which
oh my God, I love stories like this.
Yeah.
This is like insane how it all happens.
I know.
So what goes through your head when you're racing at 200 plus miles an hour?
It is, it slows down. I mean, it's easy for me to say, right? I just actually, we had a conversation. David Ortiz was out on pit road. He just did a ride around the track. And he was like, oh my gosh, like it's so fast and you're so close to the wall. And I says, imagine going 50 miles an hour faster. And now there's the car right beside you. Like that's just, but it slows down for me, right? I've been doing this my whole life. So I understand. I don't get bothered by speed anymore. That's literally a non-factor. But it's the competition. And, certainly when I started in NASCAR, the speed was a certain thing. We were running 200 miles per hour and it was like, man, I'd only ran 100 at my local short track. Like it was a big deal. But just like anything else, you do it long enough, everything kind of slows down for you.
And you do a lot of simulators, right?
Yes.
Okay, how's that like? What's the schedule like with that?
That's a big deal about what we do. So probably about 7-8 years ago, NASCAR, took away all the testing. So it was costing the teams a lot of money to go to a track, test all during the week, and then whatever you learn there, you take to the weekend and actually race. So we found that, once they put that ban on all testing, we as teams and drivers were like, well, how are we supposed to practice, right? So our manufacturers and our team started building these simulators, and it's so crazy how accurate it is. Um, you can't, like, if a football player were to play Madden, it's not going to increase his skill set for going out there on the field, right? It's just he's just using his fingers. But for us in a simulator, we're in a seat, we're strapped in, you have all the same feels, it's still the hand-eye coordination. These simulators cost tens of millions of dollars, and it really allows us to get acclimated to a track really before we get there.
How soon before do you have to start prepping for that track?
Yeah, good question. So on Monday, I will revalidate how the car felt in real life versus the simulator for the track that I'm going to go to. Then on Wednesday, we will work on, hey, here's the new setup we've come up with for your car. Run it and see, have we made improvements at that track and have your lap times improved? So usually it starts Monday, and then I have a long session on Wednesdays of just straight running laps at, Miami, where we're at this weekend.
Yeah. Can you feel like every bump in the track,
Yes.
like everything?
Yes.
Man.
It's so what happens is they bring a scanner out here, like this 3D scanner, and they just go really slow around the racetrack and they find all the cracks, all the bumps, and they adjust the grip of the track in certain places accordingly. So it is amazingly accurate.
Do you do any meditation of like you have to sit there and feel it exactly what's happening?
I haven't got into meditation, but I feel like to go to sleep, I need to start, because that's where I have a challenge, is when I get to the bed and I lay my head down, that's when my mind starts racing the absolute most, because I'm thinking about, okay, especially when I get to the racetrack, I get in my bus here and I'm laying down, I'm thinking, okay, practice tomorrow. I need to be thinking about this, learning about this. I need to go out there and try this line, try that line. And so I need something to give me some zen to just put this thing out.
No, it's so calculated. Like I can't imagine what goes through your brain before you have a big race.
It's I always say what people see on Sundays, right, is us going around in circles. What you have no idea is what makes that driver a little bit better than that one, and what makes that car a little bit better than the other one. And when you add those two things together, that's when you see the winners.
How often do you do different types of training for it? Because I know you do that, but what other training does it take to kind of prepare?
Well, I'm in my older stages.
Yeah, right.
I am the oldest driver in the Cup Series nowadays. So the biggest thing for me is my back. I really struggled with back issues and actually fractured my spine back in 2013 in a wreck. So Pilates has been by far the one thing that has been the remedy to my back issues. Now I still have them, but I just have discs that are pretty much degenerative. I got a lot of bone on bone going on in the spine. And if you think about how we're in the race car itself, we're sitting in kind of this C-shaped form. We have straps pulling us down, so it just compresses our spine more. And then we're on in a race car that has literally hardly any suspension. So it's just constantly driving your spine into the floor. And so, the best thing I can, make it feel like is feels like someone is always jumping on top of my shoulders, right? For 4 hours, it just goes nonstop. So, doing this for 20 years, it has taken its toll on my body for sure. But Pilates is the one thing I cannot miss.
Are you doing any like cold plunges, any of that?
Yeah, I try to do that mostly after anything that I get really hot in, to try to kill the inflammation. Inflammation is something that I fight, a lot. My body, it must just produce it, or I'm just not eating quite right the things to not produce inflammation. But cold plunges, absolutely. And then, before I do anything active, like, I've got a golf league that I participate in. I've got a basketball league on Thursday nights I participate in. I try to actually get, in the sauna before that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really tough to be able to sit in that position and then you're kind of going and doing your other everyday activities and you're just like...
It's hard. It is for sure. And I always, I feel like, it takes me a good 20 minutes in the morning to kind of get loosened up. I feel like I'm the Tin Man and Wizard of Oz. Like, you got to give me some oil to kind of get these joints moving. But, I don't know how much of it is age versus just my job. I've hit so many walls. I've hurt so many things over time that it's just normal maintenance.
I feel like with your diet too, I mean, I know you said it wasn't the best, but I feel like you'd have to have a lot of like sugar to keep yourself going throughout a long day.
Yeah, so it's something that sugar is probably the one thing I try to cut back on
Oh,
the
yeah.
most because I can feel when I take in a lot of sugar, like I feel my body get inflamed. Like I can feel it inside. And so but it is the one crux that I have. I do have that sweet tooth that loves to finish off a meal with just something sweet. But yeah, it certainly has a negative impact on what I feel. But you know, when we have done studies in what we do, it typically will lose between 6 and 8 pounds during the course of a race. You know, that's strictly just water weight.
Yeah.
And I always say it's the worst diet ever because essentially as soon as you drink water, you get it all right back.
Yeah.
So you got like a 24-hour,
You're like, I'm
beach body
struggling.
there. Yeah, it looks really good for about 24 hours and then it goes away. But yeah, inside of a race car, think about how hot it is in a sauna. It's 130, 135 degrees in that car and we're in there for 4 hours.
Yeah, so what do you have in the race car? I've always wondered that. Like, what are some things you bring?
Well, there's nothing that I bring, but as far as like driver cooling wise, there's not much. So we either have one of two options. One is you can wear a cool suit, which is essentially a shirt that's got these little tubes that run all over it. And it's got this refrigerant system in it to where it runs pretty cool water through it. And that helps cool your core. And what we've seen with that is it actually only changes your core temperature and we've swallowed some pills, some data pills. It changes your core temperature about 1 degree, which that's a big deal. But I just don't run it that much simply because I didn't have it when I was younger. I hate getting attached to it to where if that thing doesn't work correctly, and it happens all the time where their machines will shut off and then next thing you know, these tubes are running hot water through you. So
Oh my
I
God.
try not to have that variable and say, listen, if it's only above 90 degrees, which means it'll be above 140 in the car, will I run it? But then the other option that I always run is a helmet AC. So when I say helmet AC, it sounds better than it really is. All it does is take the outside temperature, it cools it off 25 degrees, and it runs a little bit of a tube right to the top of your head. So there's not much cooling in your car. That's the one thing that I think an amateur would have no chance of surviving is inside that car being 130, 135 for those 4 hours.
Do people pass out all the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, and usually it happens after races. I've fainted after races quite a few times, but it was mostly truthfully, when I was thinner, when I had a little bit less body fat. Don't know what it is, just not enough energy or whatever.
Probably.
But when I was my thinnest is when I would faint the absolute most.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So then you have to have all the cooling. That would be the biggest thing I feel like for me because I do not do well in the heat.
Yeah.
So if I was in that car with that, there's no way.
It's really, really hard. And truthfully, the younger guys struggle the most with the heat. I've learned, I've had all kinds of teammates and listened to other drivers talk, but it's the young ones that truthfully struggle with the heat the most.
Yeah, just not being used to it, I guess.
Yes.
So one question I have for you is when you're out on a regular road driving, how does that feel? Do you get road rage?
I don't. So I have kids. So typically for me, that is my one time where I'm by myself. And I usually take as long as I can to get from point A to point B. I'm a slow driver. I know it's unpopular to say and definitely probably unsexy to say, but I don't drive
So you're
fast
getting
on the
honked
street.
at. You're getting honked at with cars. You're like,
I don't
I'm
know
not
that I
going
get
not over 40.
maybe I do get honked at a little bit, but yeah, I'm a middle lane rider. I don't mind just
That's shocking.
being slow and letting people go around.
What regular car? You don't drive a minivan or anything like that. Don't tell me that.
I had a period where I did just as a funny thing because I loved hitting the button and letting the doors slide open and the kids pop out for school. It was amazing. But no, I drive a Toyota Sequoia for the most part now. That's my favorite car. I mean, I've had all kinds of exotic stuff and still have a few things here and there, but I love my SUV.
Yeah. No, I'm asking because I feel like it would be tough going on a regular road with some type of speed car.
Yes. I mean, if I'm driving a sports car, I mean, yes, I like to hit the gas. I don't think I'm a total Sunday driver, but again, I always equate it to this, right? and I know I talk about other sports a lot. When a football player puts on his pads, that's his time where he feels like, I need to go hit something, right? It's the same thing when I'm in a race car and I strap in, I put my helmet on. That's my moment. I'm going fast,
Yeah.
right? When I'm outside of it, I actually feel unsafe in a passenger car
Oh
versus
my God.
when I get into a race car.
Yeah.
It's very counterintuitive, but it's the same kind of thing.
What do your wife and kids think about all this?
Um,
Super
they
supportive, I'm
love
sure.
they love it for sure. I think that the youngest kids are just, I have one that's 7, one that's 12. They're just now kind of understanding dad's a big deal, and they get a lot from their classmates. Like, hey, my classmate said your dad did this weekend, and for many years they didn't think it was a big deal, but now they're understanding the gravity of it. So it's very cool now that I see kind of their emotions when I get back to the bus. It certainly has helped me survive the peaks and valleys of sports. When you have a bad day on the racetrack, you get back to the bus, next thing you know, the kids are there, and it's like, they're just happy to see you, right? And so it certainly raises the floor of the peaks and valleys, and so it certainly keeps me pretty level.
Do you think they would ever get into it?
I think they have tried, and my oldest is wide open. So you take her to a racetrack where you have to let off and make corners. She just keeps her foot down and like she'll
Oh my
knock
God.
it off the wall. Like she doesn't care. But they're just too much into singing, dancing, things
Okay.
like that. So it's I'm supporting in a different way. It's not necessarily through sports, but
Mhm.
they are getting into team sports now, which is fun.
Okay, so you're the dad going to the dance recitals and all that.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah. What other activities do you guys do?
So, they love doing anything outdoors.
Mhm.
My oldest is just now getting into track. So she
Nice.
actually had her first meet this past
Hell yeah,
weekend.
I love that.
And she, I'm sitting here paranoid. I'm like, she hasn't practiced for this. She hasn't, like, she's just gonna be so average. Let's just say average. And she won her first heat and she finished second in her next one. I was like, oh my gosh, it was such a proud moment. I'm sitting there at the fence and I'm taping her and I'm yelling, I'm just,
I love it.
go Taylor, go Taylor.
Different type of track.
Yes,
Freaking awesome.
yes, it is. It's still racing, right? And then I'm trying to teach her like, okay, now it's the 400 meter. It's a full lap, so don't give it. You can't go all out.
You can coach her on that.
Yeah, you can't. You got to save a little gas there for the end.
I
And
like
so,
this. I like this dynamic.
Yeah,
She runs the 400.
Yeah, so she did the 100, 200, and then the 400. And I mean, just seeing some of those kids nowadays doing, the 1600 and like 450, it's just like, holy cow, it's amazing.
So I ran track in like high school, college, and the times now are just like, I don't know what they're doing. It's like,
it is crazy.
it's like they're not human.
I know.
It's insane.
It is insane.
So other sports, I'm not going to call it sports, hobbies you got into. You're a big bettor, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I like sports. Obviously, it certainly. I've had a rough go at it as a favorite team guy. Like I've always been a Commanders fan in football. And we've not had the best time over the last few decades until lately with Jalen Daniels. So, certainly you get more invested, it seems like in your fantasy teams than you are just about anything else. So it just keeps me entertained watching a game on TV.
Yeah. And what did I see on your Instagram? You won like $88,000 in a.
Yeah,
I
never play slots at all in a casino, and my buddy plays it all the time. And I watched him, I was done. I was playing blackjack. I finished. I walk over there to him and he's like, man, this thing is hot. It's good. And he's like, you want to sit down? I said, sure, I guess so. And so I was like, how much can you play on this thing? So, I put in some money and the thing just kept giving away money. It must have had a short in it or something. I'm not sure.
The more you put in, you're bound to win at some point.
That's what they say. And I agree with that it's very difficult. The house always has an edge, but it really has an edge when you have a limited amount that you're willing to put up. Because certainly if you were to play blackjack for 1,000 hands, you're not going to win you're going to be better than a 22% win percentage. But if you only play 20 hands, you could lose all 20. But you got to create a bigger enough sample size to where the odds, get a little bit more even.
Do you want to keep doing it? Are you like kind of getting a little bit?
I mean, I've always had, the itch to do that, especially when we come into Vegas for the NASCAR races and whatnot. But I'm an adrenaline junkie, just like anyone else, and so it keeps me entertained.
You've been skydiving.
I have not. It's something that I think I want to do, but I certainly would rather, I need to make sure that I'm attached to someone that knows what they're doing.
Okay, so what about no bungee jumping, none of that? I feel like I'd be
I don't think I could do it.
bungee.
I just don't think I could do. I mean, I've noticed as I've gotten older, things bother me that used to not.
Yeah.
Getting spun around, like simple things like the teacups at a kid's place. Like I used to be the one just let's spin this thing around, and now it's just like, whoa, this is not giving me the feeling that it used to. So
You're more sensitive.
Height has changed for me over time. So yeah, I just don't think I could do it.
Oh God.
But I think I'd be okay, truthfully, getting in a plane and skydiving with someone.
Yeah,
that
you
would
were
be fun to me.
confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, your next sport's gonna be like what? Something super not adrenaline based.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've gotten most all the adrenaline out of me that I can in my lifetime. Certainly there's more out there to explore, but it's one of the things I want to do when I retire, right? Is just try new things. I've been so locked into this schedule that is, 9-10 months of just straight racing that, I need more time to kind of explore. I want to go to see different places, do different things, and challenge myself.
So have you ever played golf?
I love golf.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm about a 5-6 handicap in golf, so I want to get down to a scratch, but the gap between scratch and 5 or 6 is a big one, and I just haven't been able to apply the time and the resources to getting better. Like I more play than practice, and you've got to practice more to get down to a scratch. But it's a goal of mine when I retire.
Do you go out with a bunch of friends on the golf course?
Yeah, so I actually started what they call the Golf Guys Tour, and it's literally just a group of people in the NASCAR sport and industry itself that we have a league and we have a point system. We have 7 events per year, and we keep score and we crown a champion at the end. So I created this league about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so it's been going strong ever since.
And you also created a team, is that right?
Yeah, so we have the Golf Guys Tour, so we have those events that I talked about. And then on Thursday nights, I created a basketball league as well that we run out of my house. So 7 teams, we have a draft every season. We have 2 seasons per year. So I keep myself busy in other sports.
Racing team, don't you racing team?
I own a racing team with Michael Jordan as well. So my schedule is absolutely full.
You're like entrepreneur, athlete, dad. I mean,
I love work. I mean, whether it's just, doing something fun and hanging out with friends, having a league or doing some other sports, spending time with kids, working on the race team, working as a driver. I love work. I'm a workaholic, and it's just in my blood.
I feel like that's hard to change when you're like that from a young age. You just want to continue and see what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents really instilled a really good work ethic for me. And, I'll never forget when my parents bought that very first go-kart. They instilled in me, they said, listen, this is a go-kart, but this is your hobby, not ours. And if you want to go to the racetrack this weekend, you have to maintain it. You have to clean it. We're not going to do this. It's not going to be just you show up and you're just a driver and nothing else. You have to learn how to work on it, and you have to maintain it and do all the things that you need. So they really pushed me to work like that even when I was a young kid.
God, and it continues on.
It does.
So you're currently ranked 12th, correct? What are you doing to get that ranking up there?
Yeah, it's so early in the season. It typically takes 10 weeks into the season to kind of really see. That's when you start to visit all types of different tracks. And what's so different in our sport as well is that, the field isn't the same size every week. We're racing a half mile one week, a mile and a half, 2-mile track the next. And so it takes a lot of different disciplines depending on, what type of track you're running that week. And so after 10 weeks, you really get a big enough sample size to say, where do we really stand and stack up? We've been a top 4 or 5, team and driver for most all of my career. And I would expect we'll be back there in just a few weeks.
Hell yeah. Can't wait to see it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate
All
it.
right. How are we on time? Good?
There we go.
Perfect. Good. Cool.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Short and sweet. We covered everything.
You're prepared.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great
That was
job.
awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. We'll walk around a little bit and
Yeah, go
clean
check
up,
it out.
but I had pants on for the interview. We're in shorts. It's a little hot out here, right? So let's go. All right, guys, this is like the real deal. They're getting this car prepped and ready. They have all the umbrellas set. It's like a funeral. It's like a funeral for the car. Okay, so part of what I want you guys to see is diving into the life of a professional athlete and really getting a feel for what they're going through on a race day and their behind the scenes life. Right, coming around, coming around. So that's what we're going for today. So hopefully you guys can get a feel for that. A lot of fire extinguishers out here. There was a helicopter in case of any accidents, which hopefully not. And then there's a lot of smell of food. Everyone's just hanging out, getting things prepared, relaxing a little bit, and fueling up. So that's what I feel, the chill vibe. Wow. Really, we're getting all the behind the scenes of getting the cars prepped, getting them ready. I never knew what went into this until I was like here seeing this live, but it's quite the process. Fine tuning, getting prepped, getting everything put together correctly so that they're fully ready. No issues. It's exciting though, right? All right guys, we're getting fine tuned up. We're getting run over by fire extinguishers and tires. These are like the pit stoppers, correct? They have everything here to get ready. I mean, that would be an insane job. Can you imagine? You got like 5 seconds to be like, pit stop job is one of the hardest, I already know. It's one of the most stressful, for sure. Okay, more tires coming, watch out. All right, so there's a ton of cars, there's interviews going on. We still smell the barbecue. I'm getting hungry, are you? No, not yet? I feel like we need some barbecue up in here. Tires are coming along. I feel like we're gonna get kicked off at any moment here. Let's check out more of the action.